Hi everyone. So they've made some changes into the National Registry recertification requirements, and as always, when there are changes, things get a little bit complicated and can be a little bit confusing. So I'm making this video in hopes to kind of clear that up. So first of all, everything I'm about to talk about is in relation to renewing your National Registry recertification. If you have a state license, you'll need to check with your local state to see what their requirements are because they could differ from the National Registry. Being as I'm in Montana, I will tell you the Montana recertification requirements only say you need to have a current National Registry card. So if you follow the steps here to renew your National Registry, if you're in Montana, that will also satisfy the requirements for renewing your state license, although you do still need to go on the state website and verify that you have fulfilled the requirements and pay the renewal fees. If you're in another state, check with your state to see what they require. So, as I said, the National Registry is kind of changing what they're requiring, and I will say I'm pretty happy with these changes. So that's the one positive about it. And so let's have a look at what they're requiring. So the best way to always get the most up-to-date and the best information is to go to the National Registry website, nremt.org, and you don't even need to be logged in. Under EMT here, you can click on recertification. If you're on some other weird place on the web page, you can always scroll down here to the bottom as well and click on recertification. Now we want to do EMT recertification, so we're going to make sure we click on that since we are at the EMT level. If you're at a different level, you'll want to check on that as well. So first of all, you can recertify by exam if you want to take that National Registry exam again. That's always an option. But for continuing education, it's still going to be the same that you have the national component is required for 20 hours. And then you also need your local or state component, which is 10 hours, and your individual component, which is 10 hours. Now, these local or state hours and your individual hours are typically completely up to you. Again, if you're in a different state or if you're working for a certain agency, you should ask your medical director or your supervisor if they have any special requirements that they want for you to fulfill these local, state, and individual hours. But theoretically, the individual hours should be totally up to you. And someone could require something from the local or state, but here in Montana, I have not heard of anyone at any service requiring a certain thing. But just double check if you are working or volunteering somewhere. Okay, so the national component is where things are taking a little bit of a change. As you can see, expiration dates through March 31st, 2025. So if you are expiring, if your NREMT is expiring this coming March 2025, you need to follow the 2016 NCCP recertification model. However, if your NREMT expires in 2026, so anytime after April 1st, 2025, so March of 2026 or March of 2027, you're going to be following the 2025 NCCP model. So there are just a couple changes. I know this chart, I don't like the way they lay this out. It makes it very confusing. But we're at the EMT level. If your NREMT expires this coming March, then you need 1.5 hours of airway, 6 hours of cardio, 1.5 hours of trauma, 6 hours of medical, and 5 hours of operations. If your NREMT expires in 2026 or later at the EMT level, we're in the second row here, your airway is going to go from 1.5 hours up to 4 hours. Cardio is going to go from 6 hours and drop down to 5. Trauma is going from, it used to be 1.5 hours and it's going to go up to 3. Medical is staying at 6 hours required. This is the one I'm the happiest about. EMS operations is dropping from 5 hours down to 2, which I just think is a way more reasonable requirement. So, all that being said, it's a little bit complicated for me to offer a refresher this year because some of you take the refresher at the last minute. I don't blame you, I'm guilty as well. And you are going to be requiring the 2016 component. So, if your EMT expires 2025, you need these hours listed here. If your EMT expires 2026 or later, you need these hours here. So, there's some overlap, but there are some different requirements. So, this year, for the refresher that I'm going to be holding in March, I'm going to cover overlapping hours. So let me show you what I mean by that. So you'll see on our website, we're instead of holding a 20-hour refresher, we're going to hold a 24-hour refresher. I'm still only going to charge the $205 for that because I just don't see a fair way to do this and keep from basically ripping you off. So you're actually going to get a bonus 4 hours of continuing education for free if you come in and do that in-person refresher. So here's what the refresher schedule will kind of look like. So as you can see, I've kind of have both of the hours laid out side by side here. So for airway, instead of doing 1.5 hours, I'm going to do the full 4 hours. So this will be plenty. If you're renewing this year, then you'll basically get an extra 2.5 hours of continuing education out of the airway section. And if you're doing 2026 or later, then you'll get the 4 hours required for the national component. Same thing with trauma. We're going to cover 3 hours this year, so it'll cover what everybody needs. Medical, we're going to cover 6. Now, EMS operations, since that one's going from 5 down to 2 hours, I'm still going to cover the full 5 hours. So if you are expiring in 2025, you'll still be able to get those hours that you need. And if you're expiring in 2026 or later, well, you'll just get an extra 3 hours of continuing education that you can apply to your local, state, or your individual topic. Same thing with cardiovascular. I'm going to cover the full 6 hours. So if you need to renew this year, this upcoming March, then you'll get the full hours that you need. And if you're not renewing until 2026, well, you'll just have an extra 1 hour that you can put into your local, state, or individual component. So I hope that all makes sense. We'll hold the refresher this year. It is going to be a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so we can fit in the full 24 hours. Friday evening, we'll just do CPR and get that out of the way. That'll be 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. on March 28th. Saturday from 8 to 6, we will cover the remaining 2 hours of cardiovascular, 1 hour of EMS operations, 4 hours of airway, and 3 hours of trauma. And then on Sunday, March 30th, we will cover the remaining 4 hours of EMS operations, as well as 6 hours of medical. So I hope to see you all at the in-person refresher. The other thing we offer is we have the online hours. Now, I have not updated to offer the online hours to match with the new 2025 recertification model, which isn't it fun that the 2025 recertification model doesn't apply until 2026? So I'm sorry for the confusion on that. They're calling it 2025 because that's when it's coming into effect, but it's not coming into effect until April after you've renewed. So if I was naming it, I would have called it 2026, but that's just me, I guess. So for those online hours, I'm still covering the ones that I offer. You'll see they cover these old amount of hours. So keep an eye out. Hopefully by I'm gonna be realistic instead of optimistic here and say that by the middle of summer, I'll have available videos covering the 4, 3, 6, 2, and 5 hour requirements. But for right now, I have videos up covering the hour and a half, 6 hour, 5 hour, 6 hour. To find those on the website, you can go to EMT recertification and then online continuing education, and you have those hours here. So keep an eye out here, and hopefully we'll update those as I get them online, but it'll probably be the middle of summer by the time I get them all ready. So I'll do my best, and I think that's it. Hope to see you all around. Thank you.